Okay, welcome back to Horror Queers. I'm talking with Eric McCormack. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Pleasure.
So, we're going to talk about Slasher Ripper, which you're currently shooting here in Toronto.
Yes.
And I'll start with a softball question. How's
Okay.
that? So, what attracted you to the show, and were you a fan of it?
I had not ever seen it before, and what attracted me to it was the script. If you're a slasher fan, you're going to love this season. I think that Aaron and Ian have just written, it's gothic. It takes place 100 years ago, 120, and so it has that sort of gothic horror, foggy Victorian feel to it. Toronto for Victorian Toronto, and it's moody and dark in a very different way than previous seasons.
Yeah, because this is the first time the show's actually ever been historical, which I think a lot
Yes.
of people are very excited for because it feels like a bit of a novelty.
Exactly.
Okay. So that actually segues very nicely into the next question. I'm wondering if you did any research to prepare to play Basil Garvey.
No. I'm not gonna
That's fine.
I'm not gonna pretend that I like. I'll tell you why. A, because I'm a little lazy, but B, the script does all the work. It
Okay.
truly does. It's I would almost say Shakespearean, particularly Basil. All of it's well written, but Basil Garvey. There's scenes I finished in the last couple of weeks that I was sad when they were over. Like,
really?
I wanted to say those words again and again every night on stage. He is a brutal, brilliant bastard. He's just a bastard. And I've played some villains, but nothing like this guy.
Right. Yeah, because that was really interesting. I feel like most people associate you primarily with
Yeah.
nice guys, you
Yeah,
know, relatable people that they would say, oh, that's my neighbor, that's my friend, that's my coworker. And
Yeah.
here you're going to be playing somebody who, I mean, obviously you're not the villain that we know of. That would be the widow. That's part of the mystery for
Yeah.
the season. But it doesn't sound like
Although I could be the widow.
You could never say never in
It's
slasher, right?
one of those. It's one of those things where my assistant read all the 8 episodes, devoured them, and she can figure anything out before the rest of the world. And she was like surprised. She said, "This is a great mystery." So you have no idea who
Okay.
the widow might be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mystery of who the killer is always one
Yeah.
of the great aspects of the show. People
Yeah.
love to try to figure it out, and not easy. Not
Not
easy.
easy.
Okay, so you're shooting presumably on a set here in Toronto. What is it like when you show up at work and suddenly you're back 120 years? Like, what is the experience of working with the period piece part?
Well, I got my start on a show called Lonesome Dove in Calgary 20 years ago.
We don't
28
get that,
years
yeah.
ago, and a similar character in that I grew a beard and I was a kind of a bastard too, but they softened the first season. They softened it because it was like, oh, well, there's a kind of a Clark Gable charming aspect to what Eric is doing, and then I was like, oh, I really want to be the bad guy. Then by season 2, they shifted the show, and I really was horrible, but not as. I still had a Southern gentleman sort of charm. Basil doesn't really have that.
Right.
He was a street kid that made his way, made a lot of money, and then put on all of the airs of new money,
Right.
of the bourgeois. And I said, Ian Carpenter had said to me, "How do you see him?" And I said, whatever he is underneath, on the outside, he's Columfiore.
Right.
He just he really wants to be that aristocrat, and he's pretty successful until once in a while he just loses it, and then
Right.
the other side comes out.
It sounds almost a little Deadwood, doesn't it?
It's very, and my character in Lonesome Dove was very Ian McShane before Ian McShane, except
Right.
that I didn't get to say "fuck you" and stuff like that.
Shame. Do you get to curse on this one at least?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh, it's so awesome.
That's amazing.
Great.
Okay, so this is a horror show, so we know also that Slasher has a reputation for delivering absolutely outrageous kills, lots of gory practical effects, and so on. So I'm wondering, because I know you've been mentioning Lonesome Dove, but I don't think it's going to have that same level of practical effects and that sort of thing. So have you been getting your hands dirty? Have you been getting to see what the blood is like on screen?
I haven't. They've shot a lot of stuff that is the traditional slasher,
Right.
gory deaths. I've done a few bloody things, but I have not. I have not really seen the Cheesecake Factory of
Right.
of gore. Yeah.
Okay, I like the way you danced around it. It's good. We'll keep that. You may not be able to comment on this then, but are you able to tell me if you have a favorite kill of the season?
I don't think I can comment on that.
Okay. What about a favorite character that isn't the one you play?
Well, there's two sisters. They're all played by actresses that have been on the show many times, so they'll be familiar to the slasher audience. Paula and Sabrina. Yes, and they're playing these very wicked sisters, and they're delicious characters.
Oh yeah.
And Dan Cash is in it. I think he's done one season before, playing a police superintendent, and he's hysterical.
It sounds like it's a bit of a rogues gallery of like not nice people.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly right. I don't know from other slasher seasons whether the people that got killed deserved it. This season, pretty much everybody
they deserve it. Okay.
I won't tell you why, but they're all sort of united in a reason why they.
Right.
Because the widow's coming after them.
They're being targeted.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because the show has never been afraid to have bad people at its core, or at least people who are guilty of having done something wherein they deserve it. It's not like they go off to summer camp and they happen to have sex and then they get murdered. It's like the show isn't afraid to make ugly people die badly.
And live bad. I mean, like the stuff I get to do as Basil, I wish I could tell you all of it. It's so much fun. And yet there's moments where I'm just like, I need to have a bath now. And not because I'm covered with blood, because I just did something that is like, and I'm like one of the leading characters of the show, and I get to be that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what a fun character to get to play then as a result. So you mentioned that because this is an anthology, we're into season 5 now, and almost every year there's at least half the cast is returning cast members. But you're coming onto this new after half a decade. So what's it like to join an anthology show with people who already know and have that kind of camaraderie?
Well, I think if you're the new character on an existing show where everybody's playing their usual characters, it can be tough. It can be That's what happened with me with New Adventures of Old Christine. You know, it was great to work with Julia, but
You're the new guy.
I'm the new guy. But this time around, I might be the new guy physically, but I mean, everyone's new to these characters. So even though they could give me some backstories about what they'd done before, it doesn't really matter. This is the new story. So I didn't feel that sense of new guyness as much.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. It's a tribute to them, too. I mean, it was not... It didn't feel like I had to catch up a whole lot.
Right. Okay. Nice. Okay, so now we get to some obligatory queer content stuff, because that is part of my show's piece, but also you yourself are fairly well versed in having engaged with the queer community. So I'm wondering, how have your feelings changed around the inclusion or the representation of queer characters since, Will and Grace became a groundbreaking show? Because slasher is often a very queer-friendly show as well, so I'm hoping we're going to see that in the new season.
Yes. Again, I can't comment on how, but yes. I think diversity in general, whether it be queer or of color or it sticks out like a sore thumb when it's not there now. You know what I mean? Like the things we accepted for so many years, whole casts of white people that were all straight. You see that, you just wouldn't do it now. You'd be insane as a network or a streaming network or anything else to to do that. And once in a while you see it. Once in a while it happens and you think, was nobody thinking ahead?
No one in the room? No one?
Third season of Travelers, we introduced a new character who is my new partner at the FBI, who didn't know that we were from the future, etc.
Right.
And I just said, and all Brad had said was, it's a female character. And I just flat out said, well, she has to be either of color, a lesbian, or both.
Right.
I mean, we just have to. We're pretty good for diversity of color, but we don't have a gay character. And he said, yeah, okay. But he said, I don't know how much I can write to that. I said, well, you don't even have to. Even if there's one scene, I said, where she and I were on a stakeout, and what he'd written was, I've got to sell a call from my wife, and she says something like wife troubles, and I say, yeah, and she says, yeah, me too, or whatever, just something that goes, oh, and so we don't have to comment, but let's tell the audience there's a queer person here, and let's acknowledge their write to it, don't write to it, preferably it'd be nice to write to it, but just that sticks out when it's not there to me now, and so when I see a cast of 6, 8 characters, my first thought is, so who's gay? Somebody's gay.
Yeah.
And when do we get to find that out?
Yeah.
Because it's necessary. So I'm very aware of it now, and I think it's odd when writers don't start from the beginning, like just put it in the pilot script.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, well, the final question that I have for you, very proud Canadian, like to rep, and I think one of the things that I've always been most impressed about your career is that you'll go off and you'll do international shows, movies, and so on, but you always come home. And I'm curious about, is that a deliberate decision? Is it just like, oh, things happen to be shooting in Toronto, in Vancouver, because that's where some of the genre properties that you've been working on have been?
Right. It's kind of, it's half and half. You're offered something and it shoots where it shoots. But things have changed for me right now. There's places I'm not going to go to shoot.
Right.
There's states I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
And I want more than ever to shoot in Canada. And particularly in Vancouver, because we have a home there, but of course I love coming home to Toronto. But rather than just hoping some big American show shoots here, it's like, well, let's create content. And let's, so this, like I said, the show that I hope will go for HBO has American characters that have come up, but it essentially takes place in Vancouver. It's unapologetically Canada, and that was the intention.
Right.
To represent, but also because I want to shoot here. So more and more that feeling I had 30 years ago that I have to go to find my life. I have to leave. Now I feel the opposite. I feel like I have to come home to have my happiness in my 60s and 70s.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is that you're also at a stage in your career where you can command people to come to you instead of having to go out and chase quality productions. You're like, I would like to do something here. What is available?
Yeah.
Pitch me now.
My producer from Travelers, Carrie Mudd, is I think she was here today, and I'm going to find her in a second. But yeah, we've been since Travelers ended. It's like, okay, what do we do?
Right.
Let's find something with the intention of shooting here, more particularly Vancouver.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very much looking forward to seeing Slasher when it finally airs on Slasher.
It'll be a year, I think, but me too. I'm looking forward to it too.
Excellent. Okay.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so
Atlas Avenue. A long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kennett Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.